Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com.
And I thought I knew it all until I started reading Past the Wire. You should read it too.
A lot of people said it. Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz probably said it as good as anybody. There's no place like home. We're back home, ready to do a little Breeders' Cup 2023, Breeders' Cup 40, recap, takeaways, stories, observations, and the like. Waited a couple days back to do it because I always like to reflect on everything, like watching replays a day or two after the race, after the, adrenaline and excitement of the wager wore off. So we're back. We're doing this one from the backyard poolside. We've got our ice cold brewed Sure Bet coffee in our nice container here, whatever you call them, tumbler. It's a tumbler. And we're going to get into some stories, observations, takeaways on the Breeders' Cup, some of which I think will be valuable going forward and you will enjoy. We're going to start with a couple of things. First, I'll start with Go Rocket Ride. My heart really goes out to the owners of Go Rocket Ride. Very, very nice people. Caught a really, really bad break, and I personally feel really bad about how things went down with Go Rocket Ride, and I'll explain. The owners of Go Rocket Ride reached out to me and sent me a Go Rocket Ride hat, which I wore on one of the shows that I did pre-Breeders' Cup. And, on that show, I talked about how there were two horses that, I didn't like the way that they worked. One of them was Go Rocket Ride, and I explained why. The other was Archangelo. Neither one made it to the race, but, Archangelo is fine. He's going to be okay, and he's going to the next career in the breeding shed. Go Rocket Ride was a lot less fortunate. And, you hate to be right like that. You hate to see a horse working in a way that you don't like and something like that happen. It was a little gut-wrenching to me because of what transpired with the owners, and I wore the hat, and then wearing the hat, I had to say that I didn't like that the way the horse worked, but you have to call it the way that you see it. So I did so. And then, all of that went down. Did that have anything to do with what happened? No. Do I have a better eye than Richard Mandela? That's preposterous to even think so. I don't even entertain that thought. Guy's one of the best ever. It was just one of those things, and my whole point was pointing those two workouts out was that you hear a lot from the media and even the clockers, how everybody's working great and everybody's doing good and everybody's looking this, that, and the other way. And I thought it was important to point out that, now that you can watch a lot of the workouts yourself, you don't have to take anybody's word for it. And, maybe everybody doesn't work that good or look that good. And, those were two that caught my eye that worked in a manner in which I would never have bet on them. When I did the show with Keeneland Dan and Ed DeRosa, early Breeders' Cup Classic preview, this is before Archangelo scratched. I had said, I'm going to either embarrass myself or look really smart. I don't think he's got a chance to win the race, and he would have probably been the favorite. So, fortunately, I didn't have to embarrass myself or look smart because he didn't run. But unfortunately for the connections. But let me tell you, when I got to California about a week before the race, give or take a day or two, and there was already buzz on the backside and at Clocker's corner that Archangelo was probably not going to run. So I guess I wasn't alone in that observation, but it wasn't as reported as maybe it could have or should have been. But we'll talk a little bit about racing reporting later, because the Breeders' Cup is probably a showcase of racing media and how they go about their reporting. So I'll share some observations, because we're going to get into a couple different things, including the races. But what I will say is this: I appreciate Go Rocket Rides owners reaching out to me. That hat actually means a lot to me at this point. I'm truly, truly, truly sorry for saying anything and for what happened. And I hope they understand and aren't upset with me, because, you know, they went out of their way to reach out and send me the hat. And I truly appreciate it. And I won't forget it. And it's just really, really unfortunate. The other thing I'll say, two things before we, we get into the show. Can't say how much my heart breaks and goes out to Cody and his family and everyone that's been affected by that, sad and tragic loss. That kind of put a sad exclamation point on the Breeders' Cup, at least for me. That was really, really sad. May that young man and his family be blessed, be in God's hands, and may he rest in peace, and may they somehow find peace in everything that transpired. With that, last thing before we get into the show, and we're going to talk about a lot of different things. Like I say, if there's one Breeders' Cup recap show you want to watch, you want to see, you want to get some good takeaways from, this is it. Past the Wire TV, where you'll hear stuff and see things and hear things that you just ain't going to hear nowhere, no place else, because I ain't no place else. So you're getting my take. Commercials. Yes, I have commercials on my show. The more the better, as far as I'm concerned, because we don't monetize the channel. We don't ask for donations. You don't see a little icon down at the bottom of our video saying, send in money, send in money, send in money. I ask you to hit the like button. I ask you to subscribe. I ask you to share. I don't ask anybody that's watching my videos for money. Most of our seminars for free. There were 2 paid seminars a year. One is the Derby, one is the Breeders' Cup. If you're betting those races and those days, and you want another set of eyes and an opinion that's probably one of the better ones in the game, I think that's not a lot to ask. We do a lot of free stuff on here. Our Thoroughgraph videos, which a lot of people find invaluable. White Barrio, the races for second. Where are you going to hear that? I don't think you should be complaining about the commercials. Let the big outfits that want the exposure, and the people that can afford the exposure, pay for what you get to see. You could fast forward through them, but and I'd say, of the thousands and thousands, we got, I think, 50,000 people watch our videos in the past 30 days. In the past year, I think I've gotten 3 or 4 complaints about the commercials. And I probably shouldn't even say anything, because if it's that little people complaining, it's probably not a big deal. But I take it to heart, because, hey, if our content's good and you got to put up with it, and let me tell you, I'm very particular about the commercials. I've turned down as many as we've accepted. The ones that are on here are ones that I believe in, that I think are good. They're entertaining commercials. They're top shelf outfits. Stop complaining. Watch the show. Stop complaining. This is not paid TV like cable or something where you're paying for no commercials. If you'd rather me get rid of the commercials and be asking for money, or and monetize the channel, I could go that route. I don't want to. So stop breaking my chops. The couple of people that do, watch the commercials. They're good. They're entertaining. They're racing related. And we'll be back with some interesting stuff momentarily. would not be the Breeders' Cup if Game of Silks was not in the house. They are in the house big time, and they're going to have horses on the racetrack as well. So, Game of Silks, say hello.
Yeah.
Before we get to the races and the horses, we're going to start with the jockeys. Going to start with, I'm going to mention and call out 6 riders. None bad. No, I'm sorry, 7. I'm going to call out 7 riders. Okay. First 3 didn't win any Breeders' Cup races, but they all 3 rode as good as anybody on the grounds. The next 4 did win Breeders' Cup races, and they really, really all great riders, but they game faced and really took it to another level and really showed up with every mount that they had, putting them in the right position to win, as did the first 3 guys I'm going to mention. They just didn't have the horse and didn't get lucky, and that happens in horse racing. We know that. But I'm going to call out one, Umberto Rispoli. Umberto Rispoli didn't have a lot of Breeders' Cup mounts. He did win on the undercard, but he rode on Friday and Saturday in the few Breeders' Cup mounts that he had as good as anybody on the grounds. He really did, not just because he's a friend. I'm very objective. As a matter of fact, I'm more objective with my friends because I can afford to tell them, you rode that horse like crap, and not get in trouble for it. Probably wouldn't do that on the show because I just not my style. But Umberto, amigo mio, you rode phenomenal. You just didn't have the shot, and there are Breeders' Cups with your name on it. I've got no doubt about it. And funny, I was talking to Umberto one morning, and I told him the best Breeders' Cup ride that didn't win that I remember seeing was the way he rode smooth like straight in the Breeders' Cup mile at Del Mar, when that Godolphin horse and William Buick, I want to say Space Blues, but don't quote me, got up in the last couple of jumps to beat him. And it took everything Space Blues had, and we know Space Blues was a better horse and a faster horse than smooth like straight, but it took everything that horse had to get smooth like straight at the wire in that Breeders' Cup mile. So Umberto, you got Breeders' Cups with your name on them. Antonio Fresu, this guy's riding as good as anybody in the country right now. He only had a couple of Breeders' Cup mounts. One of them turned into a rough trip. The other one just came up. Another one just came up a little empty. One of them I liked a lot. That was a big price. A horse named Stay Hot. He just didn't fire at all. He just no gas in the tank. I don't know if anything, went wrong or not. But Chattelis, another horse he had that was live, didn't get the best of trips. And Antonio, you keep it up because there are Breeders' Cups with your name on it as well. So you hang strong. You got no reason to hang your head down whatsoever. You rode as good as anybody on the grounds. You just, when people are driving, Ferraris and Maseratis and Lamborghinis, and and you're driving a Camaro, it's tough to win. Ask anybody chasing that Red Bull car around the Formula One tracks. It's tough to get around them. That said, Jose Ortiz, he won on the undercard. Didn't win any Breeders' Cup races, but Jose, you rode as good as anybody on the grounds, man. You just didn't have the mounts. So that happens sometimes, and we know there's more Breeders' Cups with your name on it. I don't have to tell you that. Everybody knows that. So, Jose, it was not without notice, at least over here, that you rode the Breeders' Cup as good as anybody, even though you just didn't get lucky this year. Next year, be here before you know it. So, great job. Those three riders stuck out without winning. Uh, four guys that did win that really, just brought their game. Ryan Moore riding as good as anybody in the world. The ride on August Rodin was a special ride. Yeah, he got lucky when that rail opened up, and it might not have. And there's a horse that was in that race that might have won had they gotten a better trip, and we'll get to that when we talk about the race. But Ryan, hats off to you. Big day, big race rider. You're up there with the best in the world and the best of all time, especially on the big days with the big horses. And you got a hell of a nice job being a contract rider for Coolmore, because when they scratched River Tiber and Coolmore took Frankie off to put you on unquestionable and he won. Hats off to you, man. I mean, that's a nice job and nice loyalty. We don't have a lot of that in the States. That probably wouldn't have happened, but that's the way you guys play it over there, and I respect it and I like it, and it's a nice job to have. And Aiden's a nice guy to have behind you, along with everybody else at Coolmore. Frankie, what can you say? The guy's in his 50s. He's out riding guys in their 20s. His ride on Inspiral was perfecto, flawless. Bravo, Frankie. You rode all your horses good, all your mounts good, but that was special. Can't say that it wasn't. And it is what it is, man. Good job. I mean, Frankie, he just shows up all the time. Irad Ortiz, you've got a way of taking your always good, always aggressive, always race riding style up a notch on Breeders' Cup weekend. I don't know how many you won by now, but you're getting close to the top. You'll probably break the record if things keep going the way that they are. But you definitely, game face Irad, man. On Breeders' Cup Day, you could see it in his face. You could just look at him and see the focus and see the intensity and see the game face on a guy, man. And if you're betting your money, I don't know about you, but that's what I want. And that only bolstered my confidence on White Barrio. Flavian Pratt, let me tell you, he did win a race on a very game horse that Chad Brown trained, and we'll get to that. But Flavian, you rode excellent. The little bit of controversy with Cody's Wish and National Treasure, where some people criticized how you rode National Treasure when you drifted out and did not make contact with, but drifted out and kind of race rode Cody's Wish a little bit. That's race riding. I get that. I understand that. You put your horse next to his, hoping that might discourage Cody's Wish from going past. But Cody's Wish, he's just dead game, and that's going to work sometimes and not work in other times. But he certainly didn't foul him. There was a little minor bumping, but I think once you went out to Cody's Wish, he got competitive, and he actually came in and if anything, gave you a slight brush. Not enough to, in my opinion, warrant any type of DQ, but it was good that they looked at it just the same. But in reality, I mean, Cody's Wish would have had to knock you through the rail to probably get disqualified on that day anyway. But be that as it may. So those guys really, in my opinion, were the riders that, quote, stuck out for the weekend. One rider that I will say was a little disappointing in the trip is Christian DeMoro, but we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the race. We'll get to that. Now, let's talk about a couple of trainers. And you would just be completely remiss if you didn't talk about Rick Dutrow first. Rick Dutrow accomplished one of the most remarkable comebacks in the history of horse racing. I put it right up there with Gary Stevens' comeback um after the knee surgery and being away for a long time, and winning the classic on Mucho Macho Man, and just revitalizing his career late in life after knee surgery and the layoff. That was an epic comeback. I mean, that was up there with you know Julio Cesar Chavez knocking out Melder Taylor, I think it was, and the Heidi Jets Oakland Raiders game. I mean, it's just all time sports great comebacks. And Rick, you did the same thing, being away for 10 years from the sport, uh, and I remember a conversation that Rick and I had 4 or 5 years ago when he was, fighting to get back and doing everything that he could to get himself reinstated before the 10-year ban. And I told him, my man, hang tough. There's grade ones with your name on it, and they're gonna come. And came into Whitney, and then it came in the Breeders' Cup Classic. And not only that, but on Kentucky Derby Day, Rick Dutrow won his first race back from a 10-year ban with a horse he claimed, a claim. Uh, and then he wins the Breeders' Cup Classic, uh, 10 years down the road. He's won the Classic before, he's won the Derby before, but 10 years. It's a phenomenal training accomplishment that there's no category to put that in a record book. And heck, whatever comeback of the year awards there are in horse racing, he deserves. He'll never get the Eclipse Award for best trainer because the NTWAB can't, they got blinders on, and a lot of those people don't know how to vote and don't know how to make good calls anyway. I mean, after all, you got members over there that voted for California Chrome as the best turf horse. When's the last time a jockey that wasn't the leading money winner won best jockey? I mean, they're just, they just, couldn't pick the winner of a match race that had a scratch in it. So, Rick won't win that. And maybe he shouldn't, but his accomplishment in winning the Classic is absolutely a noteworthy feat in the sport of horse racing. And to all the owners out there that see a lot of the powerhouse barns have so many horses. If you want to get in a powerhouse barn that doesn't have a lot of horses yet, but deserves a shed row of graded stakes horses, give Rick a call, man. You won't be sorry. The guy takes care of his horses. Got a really bad deal. That's in the past. No rearview mirror here. We're looking ahead. So, congratulations. No better job done training on Breeders' Cup weekend than Rick Dutrow. But there were some other really good ones, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Chad Brown. Chad Brown won 2 Breeders' Cup races. Hard to justify. That's a really game animal, man. He did not look like he was going to win turning for home. He did all the heavy lifting, and then in the stretch was just dead game under a nice ride by Flavian Pratt. And he won like Chad wins a lot of races. But what was really special, and which will go under the radar, and Chad's got a heck of a comeback on his resume too, that I believe never got enough credit. And that's bringing Lady Eli back at the level he brought her back after, laminitis. I don't think anybody's ever done that in the history of horse racing. And I don't think he ever got the recognition for that, compartmentalized, as he should have. But what he did with Goodnight Olive this year, and those of you that watch the show and know me and go to our seminars know, last year at the Breeders' Cup at Keeneland, I made one of the biggest bets in my life on Goodnight Olive to win. I didn't think she could lose. I thought she was a contender this year, but didn't feel nearly as strong about her as I did last year. Now, I never ask trainers about their horses. I'd rather tell them what I think. There's only a couple of people, and Chad's one of them, who when they talk to me about a horse, I pay attention because I know that they really know, and that they're objective, and that they're you know, heart is in the right place when they talk about their horses, and they're realistic about it. But it wasn't until I rode home with Steve and his wife, the owners of Goodnight Olive, that I realized how great a training job that Chad did. Chad knew that this really nice mare was a year older, and he knew that, you know, getting her to run that that A+ race, you know, every time this year was going to be tough, and then have her peak at the Breeders' Cup. So all year long, I learned his goal was to get her to peak that one time for the Breeders' Cup. And everything was pointed towards this. And when you look back at her campaign in that light, then you realize that, you know, Chad did what he does often. He brought a horse up to a race as good as they can be. I spoke to Chad Brown. We got an interview with him on the show. And I told him in that interview that I thought Zandon was brought to the Kentucky Derby as good as any horse I've ever seen that didn't win the race. And Goodnight Olive was brought to the Filly and Mare Sprint as good as anybody, and she did win the race. Heck of a job, Chad. As usual, phenomenal Breeders' Cup. You were really focused. You got the job done, especially with her, and she's a ghost zapper. I know she's a little special to you. The owners are super nice people, and it was a pleasure flying back with them and getting to talk to them a little bit. And just a great job. And Chad, we can continue to laugh at people that say that you are a turf trainer, because as we've said a couple of years ago, we're padding it now, but you have a Hall of Fame resume strictly on the dirt alone. So nice job. Bob Baffert didn't win any Breeders' Cup races. Okay. National Treasure ran a great race, but he didn't win. He just run into Cody's Wish, and not a lot of people are going to beat Cody's Wish. But Bob, and this is rare to say, and I love Bob. I love Jill. I gotta say, I think you made a mistake. I think, Bob, you ran the wrong horse in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, because Speedboats Beach did not win. But the last race on Friday, Hijazi ran like he looked worth every cent that Amir Zaidan paid for him, and ran like a horse that looked like he could have won the Breeders' Cup Sprint, maybe even the Breeders' Cup Mile. So Bob, you might have made a mistake. And that's pretty rare. And I hope he doesn't get mad at me for saying that, but he may not have won a Breeders' Cup race. National Treasure ran his lights out, but I think if he ran Hijazi in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, Eli Power might have had his hands full, because that horse ran off the charts. I wish he would have run in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, because he really fired. Belmonte, great year, great Breeders' Cup. Been doing this for as long as I can remember. Watched his career develop, and just, they say, you know, this horse or that horse may have lost a step. Belmonte ain't lost a step. Aidan O'Brien, when he tells you a horse is one of the best horses that he's ever had, as he said about August Rodin a year ago, listen, the guy knows, and he's had a lot of good ones. And, you know, John Gosden, same thing. And my friend Joey will watch this show. If I'm lucky, he'll put this in the comments. And I didn't play it the way that I should have, because we make game time decisions. But I want to say, going back as far as February or March, maybe April at worst, but February or March, I told my friend Joey, I said, if August Rodin or in Spiral, especially in Spiral, if either one of them come for the Breeders' Cup, there ain't no other horse in the world that's going to beat either one of those horses. And I said that to him back, like I said, in February or March, and hopefully he'll put that in the comments and say, yeah, you did. There's probably a text message to that effect somewhere out there, but I ain't got no more. So be it. And Todd, the consummate professional. Todd showed up, up to the mark, ran a monster race, even though he didn't win. Fairness ran first time on a fast track, off the charts, but we'll get to that when we cover the races, and we'll get to that in a minute.
Tracking trips with Pick Six King John Stetton. It's one of the best tools in horse racing for any level of player. It's your second set of eyes, spotting troubled trips, betting angles, track trends, horses to watch and favorites to fade, 10 figs, ticket structure, and more. At Tracking Trips, you're a friend with benefits. Not a member? You must hate winning money. Join Tracking Trips now. Visit pastthewire.com and we'll see you in the winner's circle. Remember, nobody does it better.
Okay, here's where we may get some solid gold or pure platinum or who knows what. But we'll go over the races, get some good takeaways, and maybe see if we could, do some good with some of the observations. The first Breeders' Cup race that we saw was on Saturday, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. This was a race that looked like it had a ton of speed on paper. A speed horse won, didn't get the lead. Big Evs won for Michael Appleby under Thomas Marcan. Kind of fooled me because he was able to win from off the pace. The horse I like, Missed Waters, didn't run a step. European horses were 1, 2, 3. I think most of them had never even run around a turn. So, they just humbled us in this race. And Big Evs really showed a lot of class to just come here and win, not on the lead in a race, filled with speed when they were really a speed horse. Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies was the next race on the card, and a horse I did like and did talk about on the Seminole won, just FYI, and paid a very generous $16, probably because Tamara was probably one of the worst favorites on the card, and one of the shortest priced favorites on the card. Tamara took a lot of sentimental money because she's at a Beholder Breeders' Cup winner for Spendthrift Farm, one of our sponsors. We love Spendthrift. She's a really nice filly, but she was being asked to go 2 turns for the first time as a short price against some really good fillies. And it was a bit of a big ask. And she went to the lead, and she couldn't go all the way. Just FYI, had a really wide draw, but was able to stalk, get over a couple of paths, save some ground, and really ran a nice race. Jody's Pride, the second place finisher, ran a heck of a race as well to get up for second. Candied, I didn't think had the best trip, the horse that ran third. Bright Work, I suspected was a sprinter. I still say is a sprinter. Didn't like her at all. She looks like a sprinter, runs like a sprinter, acts like a sprinter. Tamara, the favorite, who didn't get the job done, doesn't look like a sprinter. I mean, she looks to me like a filly that'll definitely go around 2 turns and definitely get her out of ground. Just the first time to do it in the Breeders' Cup, juvenile fillies against horses that have already done that was a big ask, especially at a short price. But I wouldn't write her off by any stretch of the imagination at this point. But just FYI, is a really nice filly with a future. And I think Candied is another one that is definitely worth watching going forward. Hard to Justify was able to beat the Europeans. She was able to beat She Feels Pretty, who's a very, very nice filly and very highly regarded, and ran a good third. But make no mistake about it, Hard to Justify is a very, very tough game racehorse. Fierceness. Fierceness, I look at one of my biggest mistakes wagering wise on the entire card. And I'll tell you why. I liked Muth. Muth ran second, but was no match for Fierceness. Neither was anybody else. Johnny Velasquez, rode flawlessly, but honestly, the way Fierceness ran, looked like I could have rode Fierceness and maybe got him home. But here's what's so interesting about Fierceness. Fierceness was first time on a fast track. And if you remember, this horse was hyped to the moon and back at Saratoga. So it was obviously working very good on a fast track up there. Caught a wet track and won. Came back, caught a wet track again in New York. I always say Saratoga slop and Saratoga mud and all muddy tracks and sloppy tracks are not created equal, especially Saratoga. Came back to New York, didn't run a step in the mud. Was training good again. They said, you know what? We'll take a shot. They took a shot, and what happened? Horse ran like the hype in Saratoga, which was probably generated training on a fast track, and now probably is a one race wonder to the 2-year-old champ and early favorite for the Kentucky Derby. So hats off to Todd Pletcher, Mike Rapoli. They had the 2-year-old champ last year with Forte, who had a little bit of a better resume than Fierceness, but Fierceness will probably get the 2-year-old award and early Kentucky Derby favoritism off this one race. And it was a lights out race because Muth can run, and he made, I mean, Muth couldn't even stay with him and had every chance to. Ranged up alongside him, said, here I am, let's go. The race is starting. And Fierceness said, no, it's not. The race is over, and pulled away and said, bye-bye, see you later. So that wrapped up Breeders' Cup. Oh, no, it didn't. Then we had Unquestionable. I apologize. Unquestionable won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf under a nice ride by Ryan Moore. Aiden O'Brien ran 1-2. Mountain Bear run second. My Boy Prince from Mark Cassie ran third. Anything behind that, I didn't see any real excuse for. The horse I liked, Stay Hot, I think is a nice horse. Didn't fire in the Breeders' Cup, was thrown to the wolves after breaking their maiden, his maiden. So that's a horse I would watch coming out of that race, especially if they put him in a more confidence building spot. Didn't really have any trouble, just came up empty. But sometimes when they throw you to the wolves first time, that happens. So he gets his confidence back. He could be a runner. Endlessly showed that he's just not quite as good as some of those other horses, especially the Euros. Carson's Run had a bad draw, didn't have a bad trip, but not that bad in my opinion anyway. But just didn't seem to have it when it counted. The last race on the card, like I said, was the race Hijazi ran. It was an allowance optional claiming race. They went 21, 44, 56 and 2, 109, and he ran throttled down off the screen. Looked like he could have went around again, not once but twice. Probably as impressive a race as anybody ran all weekend, and it was not a Breeders' Cup race. So we'll come back a lot more to talk about on Saturday than there was on Friday anyway. So hang tight, and we'll be right back.
They're off in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Vino Rosso has taken the lead, and it's a vintage performance by Vino Rosso.
Dream to have some racehorses. And 2002, we talked to each other and said, let's start this up. Let's get something going on.
Spice Perfection wins the Great One La Brea.
Star of Kodiak and Mitchell Burrow, 23-1 to win it.
No better thrills. I mean, you're so pumped up, and your adrenaline and your heart's pounding.
We feel a responsibility and a joy of helping people that normally could not get involved with horses into this game.
People have become friends by joining and going to the races and winning, and people since 2002 that you just met.
It's the greatest thrill of their life other than having their kids born. And we kind of feel the same way.
Stakes triple and Bolden to win.
Because we just love winning and love competing and take it serious.
People just thank us for that. It's like I never would have gotten involved, never would have been able to experience that, and just the thrills, and it's really cool to get that kind of feedback.
The first Breeders' Cup race, and I gotta say, on Breeders' Cup Saturday, I think I had the best seat in the house. I had a box about maybe 15, 20 yards before the finish line. First box, first row, first seat. Phenomenal spot to watch a race at Santa Anita. You got the big screen to watch. And then you've got just the live view, of the finish line and of the last, 70 yards of the race where it really gets interesting. And it's just, it was a phenomenal seat. I loved it. Hats off to the Breeders' Cup for me somehow winding up in that spot. But great spot, and great, phenomenal experience. If you could sit in those boxes over there. I mean, I had a better box. I don't care who, David Portnoy, Mike Rapoli, you name it. I don't care who it was. There's no box I would have rather had than the one that I had. Nobody in front of you, right there. Just phenomenal. First Breeders' Cup race was the Breeders' Cup Mile that Cody's Wish won, and had that little DQ, little inquiry anyway. Zosos surprisingly showed no speed whatsoever. I thought he'd be on the lead. Didn't happen. National Treasure made the lead. I thought ran a huge race in defeat, but I will say this. Of all the races you watch outside, and when you watch races outside and you have a really, really good view, it's kind of like stories I told when I was a kid and there was a hole in the fence at Aqueduct, and I'd watch races from the turn or the top of the stretch, right where that hole in the fence was, where you can get around real close and watch and hear the horses grunting and breathing and the jockeys yelling at each other and cursing for room and all that kind of stuff. Totally different perspective. I will tell you this. Of all the races I watched on Friday and Saturday, Cody's move, watching from that box outside, when he started making that move from well back in the field, it was electrifying. I was like, if he sustains this move and wins the race, man, is he a racehorse and a half? And he was. And he did it around 2 turns like he did in the Keeneland Breeders' Cup Mile. And he got the job done and went out on a win and ran down a very well meant and very game and very tough National Treasure that does have a very big race in him when he fires, and he certainly fired. And you saw Pratt and Alvarado race riding to the wire in what was one of the more exciting races on the card, even taking the whole Cody Dorman story out of the equation. It was one of the most exciting races on the card, and it was just a phenomenal race. How much was behind them? Those two, I don't really know the answer to that. I don't think all that much. Charge It is a big disappointment. Zosos, when he didn't make the lead and didn't get out, his race was over. I didn't see anything happen to him out of the gate. I had a beautiful view of the gate. Just looked like he had no speed, or Flo didn't go. Go Flo is what I said before the race, and Flo said no. Flo didn't go. So I don't know what that was, what he was thinking, but or if something happened. But Zosos was kind of eliminated, about 10 yards after the race started. He had no shot to win. So Cody's Wish, monster race. Monster move. It was electrifying to watch from the stands. Fact, absolutely. The next race was the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare. Turf in Spiral was absolutely phenomenal. I thought that she was, going to win the Breeders' Cup in February and March, like I said earlier, and she did. What threw me a little bit, and questioning John Gosden is a mistake. But I always say I trust my eyes, nobody else's. These are the eyes I trust. These are the eyes I'm going to bet. My own opinion. And what threw me a little bit about and took my confidence away with Inspiral is that they ran her all year long overseas in 1 mile races, 1 mile, 1 mile, 1 mile, 1 mile. I'm like, why did they never run her a mile and a quarter? Were they worried about it? Well, it turns out they weren't worried about it, and her kick was just as strong, maybe even stronger. Frankie rode flawlessly. You'll hear what he had to say, and it is what it is. So that was a heck of a race. Second best horse ran second. Warm Heart, who's a top. Now they didn't beat us with second and third stringers over here. They brought their A stringers in Spiral and Warm Heart. They ran 1-2. Moira showed up and ran third. What can you say? Very, very good race. Very impressive performance by Inspiral. That was the plan all along. Those 1 mile races threw me off, but we talked on the seminar how she, had every right and reason to win the race. And she did. She really showed up, and it's rare for a horse that's run, with such a big kick going a mile, to have that kick first time going a mile and a quarter. And if anything, it might have even been stronger. And here's what Frankie had to say about it.
I expected her in the gate to find top gear, but once she found top gear, I don't know if you see her past the line, she was flying. Job done for the team. This was always the plan. We ditched the thought going a mile because we thought maybe a mile, the way she runs could be too sharp for her. Perfect for everyone. To give credit to everyone, John, Fady, and Chimney Park team that they supplemented for this race. And coming in this week, I thought she's my best ride, and she proved me right.
It did look impressive.
Good night, Olive. Man, like I said at the beginning, Chad brought her loaded, pointed for the race, ready to peak, loaded. She sold at the sale right after the Breeders' Cup in Keeneland for $6 million, and she ran like she was worth $6 million on Saturday. Ghost Zappa, just humbled them, loaded under a perfect ride from Irad on the rail. Gave her a perfect trip from the rail. Whatever worries we had about the rail, Irad negated, and she was just lights out. Heads and tails above the field when it counted. Society was really a no-show from a perfect draw outside, and just showed that she's just not in Goodnight Olive's league when they both show up with their best race. Breeders' Cup Mile was a very, very wide open race on paper. I said during our coverage during the week from the backside that the Japanese horses were not automatics. Some of them would be bet like they were. There's one that we'll get to that we'll talk about, but Songline was a big disappointment. He was probably the best looking one on the racetrack in the morning. Casa Creed showed up, ran third. Maj and Master of the Seas threw down again. After the last race, when Master of the Seas got nailed, I had commented that I thought, William Buick might have made a difference. Nothing against the rider that rode him last time, but he was able to win from the 14 hole, which is very tough at Santa Anita on the grass, and was one of the reasons why I was a little. I liked him a lot, but I was a little cold on him because of that 14 draw. But these horses overcame the draw on Saturday and Friday, and you know, like a lot of really good trainers that I respect have told me that good horses will overcome these things, and Master of the Seas proved that. I thought he ran a monstrous race, and I thought Maj ran really good also. And Casa Creed is as honest as the day is long, but just probably not as good as those other two. Uh, Idiomatic might have won Horse of the Year with a pretty impressive win over Randomized, who ran really big. Hats off to Chad Brown again. This 3-year-old filly was brought to the distaff, ready to peak, ready to fire off 2 easy, soft trip, wire to wire, coast to coast wins. But she showed up again, showed that she's not one-dimensional, and she's probably going to be a force to be reckoned with next year. Idiomatic made her claim for Horse of the Year with a nice victory. Flo did get the job done for Brad Cox on this one. Run a really nice race. Clariere, I thought was going to run a big race, and I think did run a big race. Had a little bit of traffic trying to come up the inside from far back. I'm not going to make it an excuse for the win by any stretch of the imagination, but she might have been a little closer and might have run a little better had she had a little bit of a better trip, but just didn't work out for Joelle. August Rodin, okay, huge race. Okay. And Ryan Moore was very honest. He said he sat, first off, I'm going to say this. Well, no, I'll get back to that at the end. I'll get back to that at the end. Remind me. Oh, wait, I'm recording this. You guys can't remind me, so I better do it now. He said when they went over the dirt at Santa Anita that the horse really didn't like it, and it was tough to settle him over that. A lot of people love the down the hill race. I get it. A lot of people love the Santa Anita turf course. I get it. I do not like the dirt strip that they run across at certain distances on the grass and the down the hill races. I like the down the hill races at 6.5. I just don't like that dirt strip. I don't like grass horses having to run over that, especially when they turn for home in the down the hill races. You always have a horse that loses his action, goes wide, gets confused, breaks his stride, something happens. I hate that dirt strip. I think it's ridiculous. I think that a major track like Santa Anita should be designed better, differently. I think they should put a top down, do something, artificial turf for those races. I don't care what you do or how you fix it. I hate that dirt strip from a bettor's standpoint, because I can't count in the last half a century how many races I lost, and maybe even won, because horses messed up going over that dirt strip. I hate it. And most people argue with me. Oh, we love it. We love it. We love it. Good for all of you. Ryan Moore, one of the best jockeys in the world, who's ridden all over the world with success on the biggest stages, agrees with me. Hates the dirt strip, thinks it's stupid. I think it's terrible. Okay. Love down the hill races, love Santa Anita. Get rid of that stupid dirt strip that messes up so many grass races and grass horses. I don't care how you fix it. Fix it. I can't stand it. That said, glad we got that out of the way. Ryan Moore said that when they went over that dirt strip that shouldn't be there to begin with, horse didn't like it, had trouble getting him settled after that, but he did settle, stayed on the rail, and was very honest, said the rail opened up and he was able to win the race. Had the rail not opened up, instead of looking like a hero, he would have looked like a bum. And that could have easily gone that way, is what Ryan said, and he was very honest about that. August Rodin, Brings a little Japanese pedigree influence to the European pedigree influence from Coolmore. Phenomenally bred horse, very interestingly bred horse, and just Aidan O'Brien said all along, this is one of the best horses he's had. I knew if he came here early in the year, it was going to be dangerous. I don't remember many, if any, horses that won the English Derby, the Irish Derby, and the Breeders' Cup Classic same year, quote, as a 3-year-old, obviously, with the 2 derbies. And up to the mark for Mike Rapoli and Todd Pletcher showed that he's good enough to compete on the grass with the best in the world. He was a single in the on the Derby card, or I forget, I think last year. And I was the only guy who's been voting for him on the NTRA poll all year long as one of the top horses, along with White Barrio. If you go back and look at my votes on the NTRA poll, White Barrio has been on top since the Whitney, and some people weren't even voting for him in the top 10. Oh well. But Up to the Mark ran huge, okay, and showed he's world class, not just a top turf horse here, world class. However, this is the race that if you watch the replay, and I said it on the seminar, this horse is very live at a big price, and I apologize for not being able to pronounce his name. Shahayar, the third finisher from Japan, I thought was one of the more live Japanese horses on the card. That horse had a terrible trip and disappointing trip, in my opinion, under Christian DeMoro, who I love. And who rode one of the most impressive races that I saw this year, with Ace Impact in the Arc de Triomphe. Christian can ride, but I don't like the ride, and I don't like the trip that this horse got. And if you watch the replay, I'm not saying he beats August Rodin, but he'd have been right there, and we might have had a photo finish, and he might have won the race with a better trip. So, and he was a big price. So, of all the takeaways coming out of the Breeders' Cup, that's the horse that might have upset the entire apple cart and got one for Japan under a better trip and took the fairy tale away from Coolmore and August Rodin and the phenomenal season that he had. And a lot of people probably didn't even see it, but if you watch the replay, you will see it. Brings us to the Classic. I didn't like the Classic not being the last race on the card. I think that changed a lot of things. But it is what it is. TV is TV. Contracts are contracts. I don't think horse racing and the Breeders' Cup had any say. I would negotiate differently if I was at the table, representing the Breeders' Cup and horse racing. But I'm not at that table, so be it. White Barrio, what a job. First off, thank you to Rick, Chip, Blake, Mark, Clint, and everybody else connected with this horse for allowing us access to them and to White Barrio. And you'll see what we mean in the videos that we have up about White Barrio. We spoke to the owners before the race, and we put a little video together after the race, kind of making a case for White Barrio for Horse of the Year, and he's probably not going to win it. And I can definitely see where he doesn't deserve it, based on the normal standards. But check out the video, because he may not deserve it and he may not get it, but he's got a claim to it. And we explain why in the write-up and in that video. But we already talked about the job Rick did, and that the owners of this horse, they all believed in this horse, and his last 2 races, the Whitney at Saratoga, was monstrous. He run a 6 negative. I said in the show that this horse can win and regress and win, and regress several points and win. And that's exactly what he did, because he ran a 1 negative in the Breeders' Cup Classic, for those that are interested. So he went from a 6 negative in the Whitney to a 1 negative and still won. And that's exactly what I said, he would have to do or be able to do and still win the race. Irad, from an inside draw on the 3-hole with that long run down the stretch, put him in a perfect spot. I watched that race from that beautiful box best seat in the house, loving White Barrio, having bet White Barrio to win. And I can say that watching that race from start to finish, never at any point was I ever even concerned that he wasn't going to win. He looked like a winner out of the gate, 10 yards out of the gate, at the 16th, at the 8th, at the quarter, at the half, at the mile, on the turn, turning for home, down the stretch, at the 8th pole, at the 16th pole. I never had an anxious moment. I'm like, he's a winner, man. And just seeing Rick and the owners after the race, and what it meant to all of them. They really believed in their horse. They were as confident as me. They might have even been more confident than me. And I was pretty confident, but he ran phenomenal. Rick, I would say, was probably more confident than me. Okay. Mark and Clint were super confident. But as owners, I guess you always kind of got to be a little bit nervous. You talk about the Breeders' Cup Classic, but they thought they were going to run. They knew they were going to run a big race, and they thought they were going to win, and they were extremely confident. Rick, I think he knew he was going to win. He didn't care who else was in the race. I will say this, okay, as great as he ran, okay, he ran great, not as good as the Whitney, but he ran two of the best races of any older horse this year when it counted most. Okay, the Whitney is a storied, prestigious race. You'll see the video. But anyway, Dermisotokake. Holy cow, did I underestimate him? This horse hadn't run since the Derby and run second in the Breeders' Cup Classic and beats Proxy for second. Proxy was flying. I don't know from where because I was too busy watching White Barrio. But Proxy was flying, and he was one of my main keys in the Exacta, Triple, and Superfecta. If he gets up, it was get the bag, Norton. He didn't get up, and the horse that runs second really surprised me. I didn't think Dermisotokake was going to run nearly that good. I didn't like him in the Derby when he run there. I wasn't a believer in him here at all off that layoff, and he surprised me. They brought that horse ready, and he ran a hell of a race. The rest were really also rans. Arabian Night showed speed. He's still slightly raced. He's still learning. If they keep him around next year, I would imagine he's going to be a really, really good horse. White Barrio is sticking around. Got a feeling it's the Saudi Cup where he's heading. We'll see. But they plan to keep him around next year, which is really exciting for the sport because he's really developed into something really, really special. White Barrio, interesting as all as anybody in the race. Third time Rick Dutrow, first time in the Met Mile that he run this horse. Had a horrible trip, still runs a 0.5 negative number. Comes back. Those of you that watch the show know I loved him in the Whitney. I think he was 10-1, a ridiculous Christmas gift of a price.
The top of the stretch in the Whitney, and White Barrio is the leader narrowly over Giant Game.
We think that he should improve off of his last race, and if he gets a clean trip, we're expecting him to run big.
Look at White Barrio and a Rad Ortiz Jr. in a runaway. White Barrio wins by almost 6
And with the short field, Mark and Rick talked, and we decided, hey, let's take a shot here. We thought he would run well, but we didn't know he was going to run that well, John.
Runs a 6 negative, by far faster than anybody in the race. He run a race. I'm not going to compare it to the Flightline specific classic, which was just off the charts, but he ran by far the best race of any horse this year to date that has run, by far.
So I'm a big believer in when they run that kind of big race off the top, you got to give them some time off, freshen them up, let them recover from the number, which when Rick and I discussed it, we thought it was best to send them out here middle of September and prepare them over here over the track surface at Santa Anita. It can be a little difficult. So he's had going to have 5 or 6 breezes over this surface. He settled in really nice.
Rick Dutrow packed his suitcase, head out west, got to Santa Anita early with this horse. Didn't even consider a prep off the Whitney. He was the one that kind of set the tone this year for coming in fresh. A lot of people kind of followed his lead because the Whitney was before any of those other races. After the Whitney, he said, I'm going right to the Classic. Packed up his game, head out west, and he's been there since with White Barrio.
We'll probably have to use him a little more earlier than we want to get in a tactical position behind the speed, and we'd like to be in the first horse in the second flight of horses, stalking those horses to be able to get first run at the quarter pole.
Bottom line is this, he's had enough time to recover from that. Is he gonna regress? He can regress and win. He can regress 2, 3, 4 points and still win the race off that. If he runs anything back close to that, the race is for second. It's as simple as that.
But it is White Barrio and Ernie Ortiz, and they have won the Breeders' Cup Classic.
I think people deserve a second chance in life, right? And I don't think anyone in the industry questions Rick as a horseman at all. I mean, you know, I've talked to a few people and they've all said he's probably one of the better horsemen that they know. So we definitely made the right decision, you know, and we're excited for Rick to be back, you know, in the Classic and have an opportunity.
It's exciting. You know, Rick's only been back a few months. I don't know if, you know, 3 months ago he expected to have this kind of horse this fast, but, you know, he's game for anything. He's definitely somebody that, you know, doesn't turn down too much, especially when it comes to being around a nice horse. So, you know, we're very fortunate that we've been able to, you know, be around him this long, and, you know, that we've been able to keep him going in the right direction. And, you know, hopefully after this, you know, we get to prepare for, you know, the next big one.
We talk about second set of eyes, and I'd like to think mine are as good as anybody in the game. No balls, and I remember once I made a big bet on no balls, and he didn't win, and I was like, "That's what I get for betting a horse named No Balls." I like the Big Invasion a lot. He runs second. Had a little bit of trouble. I don't know if he would have got No Balls or not, but I couldn't get to No Balls, and the reason was nothing in the racing form, nothing on Thoroughgraph, nothing in my handicapping. It was the replays. I watched that last race at Colonial Downs half a dozen times because I'm always reluctant to toss Larry Ravelli. And off that last race at Colonial, I couldn't get to him. I didn't like the race. I didn't like the way he ran. I didn't like the way he looked. And he absolutely fooled me, not once, but twice. He fooled me by winning, and he fooled me by winning from off the pace, and he beat Big Invasion, who was a big price, who would have helped me a lot. But so be it. Hats off to Larry Ravelli. Had a horse run big in the Kentucky Derby. I used to consider him a guy I make scores on under the radar. Larry, you are no longer under the radar. You've shown on more than one occasion now, and I always knew it, or knew it for a long time, but you could run with the best of them on the big days, and you certainly did. Closed out with Elite Power winning the Breeders' Cup Sprint again. We had our share of repeat winners. We had Cody's Wish, Elite Power, and Goodnight Olive. Three repeat winners. That's pretty impressive. And hats off to Belmonte, trained 2 of them. Chad Brown, again, props to both of those guys. Elite Power run a huge race. Speedboat Beach disappointed me. I thought he'd clear the field and be able to go all the way. He wasn't quite able to do that. He did clear it, and Mike kind of eased up on him, and the last eighth of a mile, there was no gas left in the tank. And I wish that was Hijazi that Bob ran in that race, because I was looking to beat Elite Power, and maybe that would have been a mistake no matter who was in there, but maybe not, because Hijazi looked like he could have beat anybody going 3/4 of a mile the way he ran on Friday. But this race was faster, so who knows? You never know. They went 21 and change, 44, 56, 108, and 108 and 1 in fifths. 108.34 in hundreds, if you prefer to break it down that way. But Elite Power closed out the card as a dual winner and as a sprint champion and as a just great job for Belmonte. And another winner for IRAD. And Gunite just came up a little bit short. We nailed Gunite to beat him last time. I think what was that race in Saratoga, whatever it was. So we were right there, but we weren't right here with Speedboat Beach, and that happens. But overall, those are my takeaway on the races. We'll come back with a couple of stories and observations from the weekend, and we'll wrap it up with that.
The gold standard in past performance information is now free, exclusively on DRF Bets. Join DRF Bets with the promo code WINNING. Get a $250 first deposit match bonus, a $10 free bet, and free formulator already uploaded to your account. Access Formulator's premium features, including sortable trainer stats, race replays, personalized trip notes, and lots more. Free formulator, exclusively on DRF Bets.
Hello, friends. Cheeto DePazio here, Mob King. Anytime I'm wanting to know any information about the sport of kings, horse racing, I look to my man Jonathan Stetton at PassTheWire.com. And if you're looking to bet, like I always am, no better source than Jonathan. They don't call him the Pick Six King for nothing. So why don't you do what I do with anything that pertains to horse racing? PassTheWire.com. Tell him Cheeto DePazio sent you.
Well, all in all, always interesting to spend a week out in California for the Breeders' Cup. So let's get to some observations and shout outs, okay? And stories, okay? First off, I'm going to start with shout outs, and I'm going to, call out people who were exceptionally kind to myself, Jim, the Pass the Wire team. We had Ernie Belmonte out there. Jenny Doyle was out there. Myself, Jim Gazzale. And, some people go out of their way to make you feel and treat you special. And I like to thank people for doing that. Bob and Jill Baffert, your hospitality and graciousness and friendship is much appreciated. Love you guys, appreciate you guys, and I wish more people knew the real you and you, Bob and Jill, than do, and not just went by, lack of reality. Umberto Rispoli, my friend, I love you, man. You're riding great. Antonio Fresu, you're now my friend, amigo mio, and you riding great too. Jose Ortiz, your interview was probably the most fun, and I will say, and Bob and Jill, you'll understand this, I ordered the shoes, so I'm gonna have them too. Next time I see you, I'll probably be wearing them at Pegasus. I got the shoes. And my pair might be nicer than yours. Ha! I found a really nice color. Donato, Lonnie, pleasure. Appreciate your hospitality, your graciousness as well. Chad, I love you, brother, man. Always appreciate you. Janine Sahadi, was great to see you, even though it was brief, and I'll get to that in a minute, but great to see you. Samantha Siegel, always great to see both of you. Love you guys. You guys are always great to me and to Pass the Wire. And I love you guys for many reasons. I didn't see Blake out there, but Rick and Chip, Dutro, love you guys, man. Rick, we talked about this for years. You made it happen. Congratulations. Just unbelievable. Speechless. Clint and Mark Corbett, the owners of C2 Racing. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your hospitality and graciousness. Thank you for your candor and honesty in interviewing. And thank you in your way during Breeders' Cup week, making me and Pastor Wire feel like we were somehow a small part of your phenomenal moment and phenomenal win, and just epic moment on the biggest stage in horse racing. And I wish you guys all the best in the future, and I look forward to seeing both of you again, and your lovely ladies at Gulfstream, at the Pegasus, or who knows where. But thank you all. Last but least, on the thank yous, no exaggeration, and this really surprised me. Okay, I had maybe literally between the flights and the mornings and the presence at the racetrack, I would say maybe 30, 40 people come up to me and say, "Hey, you're the guy from the Pastor Wire podcast. You're the guy from Pastor Wire TV. You're the guy that does the Thoroughgraph shows. I watch your show. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it." Nobody came up to me and said, "I watch your show and it stinks." Or "I can't watch your show, or you're terrible." I had literally 30, 40 people come up to me, shake my hand, say they love the show. And that really, really meant a lot. I wish I knew them all and could remember all of their names. If I would have known that was going to happen, honestly, I'd have brought a pen and paper with me and wrote every one of you down, because I appreciate every single one of you. And I don't remember all your names. I apologize. I'm getting old, but I do remember every one of your faces. And if I see you again, I will remember you. Thank you to everyone who thought to come up and say hello and introduce themselves. And people came up and mentioned specific shows that they liked, and told me that other people that they knew and told me who they were, that, "Oh, this so-and-so loved this show, so-and-so saw that show and loved it." And it really, really, it was a little bit humbling and meant an awful lot. So thank all of you who did that. Can't thank you enough. Can't thank you enough. Couple of other stories to talk about. One, to everybody who lives in California, I mean, no disrespect whatsoever, but I salute all of you for being able to put up with that traffic, because there's nothing like your navigation telling you that you're 6 miles from where you're going and your ETA is about 75 minutes, and consistently being accurate. I don't know how you do it, okay? You guys are spending about 60, 70% of your life in your car. All right. If you work a full-time job, I mean, I think you got about 10% of your life outside of your car and work. That's ridiculous. Parking, drive-throughs, California. Okay. I don't even know who the governor is out there, or whatever calls the shots, whatever. Well, I think I do actually. What is his name? Gavin Newsom, whatever. I think he's going to run for president. I don't know, but whatever. But whatever. Gavin, if you watch this show, you probably won't, but somebody should send you this. You need more drive-throughs. Stopping at Dunkin' Donuts to get a cup of coffee, or stopping somewhere, because unfortunately they don't yet have sure bet coffee out there, and they should. But you stop out there to get a cup of coffee, okay? There's no drive-through. You got to go find a municipal place to park your car, drive up 2-3 ramps to find a parking spot, pay, go down to some scuzzy elevator or some horrible staircase, and go and find a place to go and walk to get your coffee. And they're so slow serving people. I don't know where they find the people, but they'd never last in Florida. And in New York, they wouldn't last an hour. They wouldn't last a day in Florida, but they wouldn't last an hour. You got to know how to move the line, keep working. You could be friendly, say hello, how you doing, good morning, make the coffee, make the breakfast sandwich, and get them out the door. I walked in I was dying for Dunkin' Donuts. I walked in one place. First of all, I had to park a mile away. I found a Walgreens. I thought I could park there. Had to pay to park even in Walgreens. Okay, walk 2 blocks to the Dunkin' Donuts. Walk in. There's one person in front of me making a breakfast sandwich. Okay, the person waiting for the breakfast sandwich is buried in their phone. This person behind the counter was making a breakfast sandwich. I could have cooked lobster fra diavolo for 10 in less time than it took this person to make a ham and cheese on a muffin or whatever the heck they were making. It's in the micro. I think they microwaved the muffin one piece at a time. The 2 sides of the muffin. It was ridiculous. I waited about only 3 or 4 minutes and said, you know what? I can't even deal with it. I walked back to the car, paid, left, and got out of there. Drive-throughs, they work. They're better. The traffic is ridiculous. Okay. I will say the drivers on a whole, as bad as you think those LA drivers are, come to Florida. I would say your LA, California drivers, as bad as you out there, some of you think they are, we got worse and less courteous drivers here in Florida. So you never know until you go. So keep that in mind. The Cody story, that poor young man passing on the plane is heartbreaking beyond words. I don't know enough of the particulars about what happened and what his flight arrangements were or were not to make any comment about that. So I'm not going to, because I don't like to talk about what I don't know. I can only say this. If it was my child, I would have only flown him under very, very, very special circumstances. And I don't know that he didn't fly under those circumstances, but I would have had a nurse. I would have had special accommodations. I probably would have flown him on a private plane and not have any connections or commercial airline travel stuff to deal with if that was feasible. And if it wasn't feasible, I probably wouldn't have gone. And I don't know that wasn't the situation, so I don't know what happened. But I just know that whatever happened, it's tragic, it's sad, it breaks all of our hearts. And you can never, you know, I mean, he outlived his life expectancy with what he was, diagnosed with. Unfortunately, his fate was kind of inevitable, so to speak, but you can never be prepared to lose a child like that, no matter how much you may know it's coming. So my heart goes out to his family and him, and I hope he is at peace and where he belongs. And I hope his family is somehow able to find peace, including his sister and everyone that knew him and was close to him and was part of that story. It was really, really sad. You always find out, well, I don't want to say more, but you find out as much about people when they win as when they lose. Okay. And I don't like to call people out unless I really need to. And I definitely don't believe in being a rat and don't respect rats and don't like rats. And I don't like what they refer to, a term that I don't really use much, as dry snitching. And I don't consider this either one of those things. And I'm not going to mention who it was, but there was a rider who I like a lot. And everybody's entitled to a bad day. And everybody is entitled to, not be on their best 24/7, especially somebody who's in the limelight and popular and whatnot. But a rider did something at the Breeders' Cup that really turned me off to them. And I didn't get the opportunity to tell them to their face, because I certainly would have, because, it's someone that I have, met and spoken to. And even if I hadn't, I would have probably have said it anyway, because that's just how I am. But there was some poster they gave out at the Breeders' Cup. Okay. A lot of people, fans, were getting them signed in the pathway where the jockeys walk back to the races, and most of the riders were friendly, signing them, taking pictures, and just interacting with the fans, and that's a beautiful thing, and I think it's good for the game. But there was one particular rider who walked back at a time when must have been a big field, because there was maybe half a dozen riders signing these posters and taking pictures with the people who they were signing them for. And two older gentlemen, okay, one right after the other. And I would say both in their 50s, not kids, not very old. Both approached the same rider, one particular rider, and asked him, "Oh, so-and-so, would you please sign my picture?" And this rider didn't even look at them, didn't break a sweat, didn't break a stride, just kept walking and said an abrupt no, kept walking. Next guy, "Oh, would you please sign it?" No, and kept walking. Not see me next race, which I would think if you're in a bad mood and you're, been around racing long enough and in the limelight long enough to be professional, you would have known enough to say, okay, I just lost a photo, which wasn't the case, but, I'm not in the best mood right now. I just had a fight with my girlfriend on the phone. I got a text from my wife saying she's mad at me. Well, who knows what happens in anybody's lives? We don't know that. But I just thought it was very low rent the way this guy disrespected those two older fan betters, gentlemen, whatever they were. And this is somebody who I know and like, and it really, really turned me off. And I would have said something to them if I got a chance afterwards, but I just never got the opportunity, and I wouldn't do it publicly. But if I ever do run across them again, I'm going to tell you whatever happened with that, because that was like pretty crappy. Most of the guys were great, but this particular situation was not this guy's finest moment for sure. At least in my opinion. Maybe you might disagree. It was far from the only stupid thing I saw at Breeders' Cup. There was one scene where I don't know who the guy was. Obviously, I was sitting up in the box, but I want to say it was after the Idiomatic race. And it's funny because idiomatic, I'm not smart enough to know what it means, and I'm not patient enough to look it up, but idiomatic kind of sounds like idiot, okay? Even though the horse was probably not named after an idiot, but there was an idiot, okay, near the winner's circle, okay, after that race, screaming at the top of their lungs, okay? We're sitting up in the boxes, everybody's sitting up, and this clown of a guy, and again, I couldn't see who it was, and they're entitled to their opinion, but it wasn't so much that they're right, wrong, or indifferent. And I'm not even going to get into their opinion, because you know what they say, opinions alike, they're like blank, and everybody's got one, and most of them stink, if not all nowadays, but except of course mine. But other than that, this guy was there screaming, boo, boo, Brad Cox, you're a whatever. And I couldn't tell exactly what he was saying, but I think he was calling him a bum or a fraud, or might have been cursing. I don't know. I couldn't hear exactly. But the people up in the boxes, you could hear and they were laughing and commenting on him. And there were obviously, where I was sitting, there were, people involved in racing. And it wasn't so much his take that anybody had exception to. It was more of how he carried himself and prevented himself, just like a total buffoon. Like if the Gong Show was still on, get Chuck Barris, gong him right off the show. And they did send security over and whatnot. I don't think they threw him out. I couldn't see for sure, but the guy was really just low rent kind of guy. And that has nothing to do whether he was right or wrong. It was more how he carried himself and how he presented it. I'd have had more respect for him if he would have walked up to Brad and said something to his face, one-on-one alone. And I've met Brad Cox. Brad Cox might have punched him right in the face. I don't know. Maybe not on the grounds. He's got too much to lose. And this guy, you could kind of tell, did not have a lot to lose. The worst that could have happened to him is he got thrown out and maybe spent the night in the LA County jail, which he probably would have survived, but might have got a beating, might not. Looked like a big guy, but who knows? But anyway, it was kind of entertaining. there was that. Last, not least, I did go to the NTWAB dinner, although I am not a member. I bought a ticket for myself and for Jim. I went for two reasons. I went because they were honoring the Edwin Gregson Foundation, of which Jill Baffert is a part of. Janine Sahadi is the chairperson of, I believe, and they were getting an award. And I went out of respect for them because I believe in what they do and I support them. And I think they're a great organization that does a lot of good. They were also honoring Cody and his family. And I went and bought a ticket because I thought that was worthy and they deserved it. I don't know who else was getting awards, and I don't care. I got there late because it was the night of the seminar, but I got there early enough, walked in with Lisa Lazarus of all people, but I got there early enough to beat the salad. So they had not served the salad. Said hello to Janine, said hello to Sam, said hello to a couple of other people, sat at my table, said hello to everybody there. Ed DeRosa, who I do shows with and who I like, was there. Jim, I don't know the other people that were there. I stayed 5 minutes, and I left. I excused myself to Janine. I don't know Cody and his family and them, so there was no need. But you know, I bought my ticket for me and Jim. We went to the dinner. I left. Jim stayed, and I lasted 5 minutes. I couldn't take the conversation at the table. I had other work and stuff to do that I should have been doing. And I will say right now on the record, I'm very particular about who I break bread with. Okay, I don't just sit and hang and eat with just anybody. That's me. That's always been me. Anybody who knew me had the over under of how long I would stay at 5 minutes. And it was right on cue. When I left, I said to Janine, I said, you can't really have expected me to stay much longer than I did. She just laughed and kind of knew. And I stayed 5 minutes, and I spoke to Jim, who stayed for the whole thing. And, you know, I would have liked to have seen Cody's speech. And the speech is about Cody. I could have done without the rest. The conversations that I heard at my table within the 5 minutes that I stayed was stuff I could have certainly have done without. And I'm sure they feel the same about me, and I could care absolutely no less than you could possibly imagine. But that was that. So, you know, I'd buy a ticket again and probably stay the same amount of time if I believed in the, you know, people that were getting the awards, because that's just how I am. But I lasted 5 minutes at that dinner, and it was 5 minutes that I will never get back. Time is one of the most precious commodities that you have. And I thank you for giving me yours to watch this show. I hope we got some good takeaways. That horse from Japan might have won that race. I wish I could say his name. How embarrassing, but I can't say his name. And I don't know what idiomatic means and if it has anything to do with idiot or not, but there definitely was an idiot near the winner's circle after that race. But that's it. That's a wrap. Got another interesting show coming up very, very soon, where we got somebody from social media, great personality, great guy, hit some monster tickets coming on the show. I never like to announce my guests before they come on, because then if they don't come on, I feel like I look bad. So I'm not going to say who it is, but this is a guy that it's almost impossible not to love and follow if you know his social media profile. Really, really good people. Happy to have him on the show. I hope it works out. So ciao for now.
Does it better.